Sorry, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nandini Kajla, undergraduate student from Electrical and Electronics Department at NIT Delhi. Today, I take this privilege to welcome to you all to session 2 of AICTE Training and Learning Academy sponsored online faculty development program on nature-inspired optimization techniques. The topic of this session is evolutionary computing techniques for optimization. This topic would be taken by Dr. B.K. Panigrahi sir from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. I take this privilege to welcome you, sir. Dr. B.K. Panigrahi sir is a professor at IIT Delhi, India. He was in the teaching and research profession since 1990. He has a number of patents to his name, along with 615 publications. He was also granted with the Fellowship of Indian National Academy for Engineering in the year 2015. Vijay Ketan sir is a senior member of IEEE. He has received the PhD degree in Power System from Sambalpur University at Sambalpur, India. He has also served as lecturer with the University College of Engineering, Sambalpur. Since 2005, he has been an associate professor with the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Delhi, where he became a professor at 2017. He is also the head of Center for Automotive Research and Tribology at IIT Delhi. His research interests include intelligent control of flexible AC transmission system devices, cybersecurity for critical infrastructure, power quality assessment, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and application of soft computing techniques to power system planning, operation and control, machine intelligence, and evolutionary computing. Now, I would humbly request Dr. B.K. Panigrahi sir to please come over and enlighten us with your words. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks Nandini for the nice introduction. Is it visible? The slides are visible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes,
I am checking. You just confirm whether it is going to the next slide. It has gone to the next slide?
yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me start. So very good afternoon to all of you. So this particular theme, nature-inspired computing. So I could have call it nature-inspired computing technique for optimization, or you can call it bio-inspired computing for optimization, or you may call it evolutionary computing for optimization, or in a broader sense, whatever I will discuss today is the swarm intelligence technique for optimization. So I will focus to the swarm intelligence technique. So the name, whatever you may tell, absolutely no problem. Okay. So coming to this, why I have chosen this particular one. Are my slides are visible, but it is not visible to me. Hello.
Sir, it is visible. It's visible, sir.
But to me, it is not visible. I don't know. Okay. So I'm going to the next slide. I'll introduce about the optimization methods. So if we look into the optimization method, you see the very basic fundamental thing is when we are optimizing something. So from mathematical principle, we know that there must be an objective function. Okay. So that objective function f of x is to be optimized, that is to be maximized or to be minimized. But sometimes I want to optimize a particular function which not necessarily can be described as a mathematical function. I'll give some example when we are solving some problem in real life engineering application. So anyway, if I'm considering any of the optimization method, there are basically two different types of methods which are used for the optimization technique. One is the traditional optimization method. Another is basically the non-traditional optimization method. So if I am going to the traditional method, these are based on certain mathematical principle. And non-traditional method we'll discuss, which is basically this evolutionary computing, biological computing, etc. But before going to the detailed discussion of the non-traditional optimization method, if we look into the optimization tree, this optimization is of two types. Either the function which I want to optimize or the nature of the optimization problem is a continuous optimization or it is a discrete optimization. Okay. Now if it is a continuous optimization or discrete optimization, in both the cases, okay, this is the scenario. In both the cases, either the optimization which you are going to carry out is a constrained optimization or it is a non-constrained or unconstrained optimization. So what is basically this constrained and unconstrained optimization? If I look into, for example, in mathematics we call it optimization, but sometimes in computer science we call it search. So when we call it a search, so basically what is this search? What we are searching for? For example, I want to find a solution to a particular problem, and there may exist n number of possible solutions. I can give you an example. Suppose I want to travel from IIT Delhi to NIT Delhi. So if I want to travel that, then you can find I have to define first what is the objective. Is the objective is the shortest route? If it is the shortest route, then definitely the length of the route which I am covering is less. Okay, but sometimes we found that no, I don't want a shortest route, but I want to travel from IIT Delhi to NIT Delhi in a shortest possible time. Because when I'm talking of the shortest possible time, not necessarily the shortest route will result in to shortest time. The route may be a little bit longer, but the route is free. Like your Google map is showing you 2 or 3 different alternative routes. So if it is showing you 2 or 3 different alternative route, then you have to find out which one is the best route for you. Either you want to adopt the shortest distance or you want to adopt shortest time, less time. Okay, so that's why first define what is your objective. Now, if I know my objective, then the next point is there may be n number of solutions which exists. For example, to reach from IIT Delhi to NIT Delhi, I may have n number of paths. Out of this n number of paths, which is the best path? I want to find out the best solution. So every solution is a probable solution, but out of this probable solution, I have to find out which one is the best solution for that. So finding out the best solution is nothing but searching a best solution out of n probable solution. So now I can just convert the optimization problem into a search problem. So for example, it is a two-dimensional problem. I am searching a function I know a function f which is having two dimensions x1 and x2. Okay, so if the two dimension, then ultimately the value of the function f of x1 and x2 is a three-dimensional, because for every value of x1 and every value of x2 you will get the function f of x1 x2. So ultimately it is a three-dimensional. It will represent it. The dimension looks like 3 because the third dimension is the function value, but the number of variables in the optimization problem are 2, x1 to x2. So this is a two variable problem, but when I'm plotting this to visualize it, it looks like a three-dimensional surface, a three-dimensional one. Okay, but if it is a single dimension x, then this is f of x or y. So I may know this is a function this looks like. Okay, so now I want to find out this function which is a continuous function, and I want to find out the maxima or minima of this particular function. Okay, in a boundary that is known as x lower limit. This is the lower limit x and this is the upper limit of x. That means you know the function value. The function exists between a range xl to xu. So you have to find a solution that is x star, okay, for which the function value is either maximum or minimum. So basically I can call it, this is a search. Now any point in this between xl to xu is a probable solution, is a feasible solution. Okay, so if I take a three-dimensional, I can plot the contour or space. So the whole space is a solution space. But sometimes it may happen that there may be certain space where your solution doesn't exist. So this is a point where the solution doesn't exist. and this is another area where the solution doesn't exist. So in the case of a on-constraint optimization problem, the whole search space is a probable solution space. But in case of a constraint optimization problem, there are certain constraints where the solution doesn't exist. So this is really a challenging problem we want to discuss. Okay, now in this optimization, basically I can find out the solution of this optimization in an iterative process. You can find out in an iterative manner. You start from initial guess of the solution, then you can find out what is the optimal solution. Let us I'll give you a classical example, the function which I have already shown you. This is a function. I want to find out the maxima or minima of the function. You know that in the high school we have studied to find out the maxima or minima of a function, we have to take the derivative. So if you know the function fx, okay, now you take the derivative of the function, that is f dash x, and equate it to 0. If you equate it to 0, then corresponding the value of x, you put it in f double dash x. Then depending on the sign of f double dash x, if it is a positive, then it is a minima, negative, it is a maximum. Okay, so all these things we know, but ultimately x star is found out because if you make f dash x equal to 0, the value of x for which f dash x equal to 0 is x star. That means at this particular point, whether it is a maxima or it is a minima. So now I am taking this differentiation, but how, if you are writing a computer program, how will you do it? So this can be done in an iterative manner. For example, this is x and this is f of x. So what exactly I want to do? I will assume a random solution in the search space. So once I am calling search space, you know the lower value of x lower limit, and the upper value of upper limit of the x upper limit. So your solution x star lies in between xl and xu. So you choose an initial random start, you choose an initial solution between xl to xu. This is my initial solution. Okay, so if I am posing this is an initial solution x0, okay, now you evaluate your function at that particular value. So this is f of x0. Okay, so once you evaluate f of x0, the next step is you generate a new solution by a perturbation of x0. Okay, so you increment x0 by an amount x0 plus del x. So if I am incrementing x0 to generate a new solution, that new solution is at x0 plus del x, this value. Okay, now evaluate the function f of x0 plus del x. Now you have f of x0 plus del x, which you can call y1 and y2. So y2 minus y1 divided by x2, that is x0 plus del x, minus x1, that is x0. So that is nothing but the information of gradient, y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. This gradient is nothing but this differentiation. So now evaluate this gradient. Once I am evaluating this gradient and I am finding out this gradient is not 0, then you have not reached either at a maxima or at a minima. So you go on searching. Now please try to understand. Your search starts from a random solution. Then the search proceeds in a particular direction by incrementing the value of x0 by an amount del x. So a new solution is generated in a traditional way, in a fixed way, and the way is an increment by an amount of del x. So once I am incrementing it, then I am taking the information of the gradient. So based on the information of the gradient, the search progresses. Go on incrementing, it is to x0 plus 2 del x, x0 plus 3 del x. Now, when you are reaching here, you can find that the slope is 0. So in a computer program, you won't get 0, you can give a tolerance. So if the slope is less than 10 to the minus 3 or 10 to the minus 6, stop there. Okay, so, and report that that is the function. So if it is a gradient ascent or gradient descent, you can see the how you are proceeding. So based on the information of this gradient, you are now trying to find out the optimal solution. So that's why you can see this method, which now I have decided, or just we discussed, it is an iterative process. It is an iterative method to find out the desired solution of the maxima and minima. Okay. Now this optimization problem, this function, it could be a linear function or it could be a non-linear function. Okay. So in either case, I can proceed in that manner. So this non-linear optimization is basically by means of a search method. I have already told you this method is a search method. Okay. So this search progresses iteratively, and this search procedure is known as a Newton algorithm. So this algorithm which I have discussed, you know, most of us, is an iterative method, is a Newton-Raphson based algorithm, because I am depending on the information of the gradient. So similarly, I told you either it is a linear, the search space, the function is linear, or the function is non-linear. So you can find out by simply linear programming, a simplex method, or by the graphical method. Okay. Similarly, if it is a non-linear method, you can go by your non-linear method is by your traditional iterative based search method. So I am not going into all these things. All these things are just very fundamental thing. But now you can see this function. So if your function is just like this, in contrast to the earlier function which I have shown, this is a convex because there is only one optima. But you look into this is a non-convex one where there are many minima. Minima number 1, AFA, minima number 2, BFB, minima number 3, CFC, and minima number 4, DFD. That is, the value of X is ABCD, then the corresponding Fx is FA, FB, FC, FD. So these are the 4 local minima. These are known as local minima. But out of those 4 local minima, one is known as the global minima, which occurs at B. So if the function is non-convex, then if you are searching it by traditional method, I have already told you about the traditional method, which is an iterative technique. Okay. So in that method, what happens? If somebody assumes the initial guess here, so he or she will report this is the maxima. Somebody assumes initial guess here, he or she will report this is the minima. Similarly, for this solution, this is the minima. For this assumption, this is the minima. So now please try to find out the difficulty here. The solution which you are providing by the method and iterative search method based on the information of the gradient is dependent on the initial guess of the solution from where you are starting. So depending upon initial guess, you may stuck at local minima. Not necessarily for every initial guess, because the initial guess is random between x lower limit and x upper limit. You may or may not reach at global minima. So sometimes this is the difference between global versus local optimization method. The method which we will describe today, the nature inspired computing, is coming to a rescue for this when we are trying to find out the maximization for the global optimization problem. So such problem, such function is known as a multimodal function because this function is having multiple maxima or multiple minima. Either the function can look like this also. Now this function. So you can see this function is having multiple maxima and simultaneously also it has the multiple minima. So it depends what you want to find out. Okay. So the local, local equal to global if the function is convex. I have shown you. In the case of a convex, there is no question of local or global. They are equal. But if the function is non-convex, there may be a global minima or global maxima. So that is the challenge in this case. So now let us come to the mathematical background. I have already told you the mathematical background based on the gradient based information. So this search method is a gradient method, and then you can form the Jacobian. Many people who are from power system, you know that whenever we try to find out the load flow solution, in the load flow solution, I have a set of nonlinear mathematical functions describing the P and Q, power and reactive power. Because the power and reactive power in a electrical circuit, the flow is dependent on mod V, mod E divided by X, or you can write mod E, mod V, Y the admittance. Okay. Then sine, the angle of the difference between E angle and V angle, del 1 minus del 2. So this makes the form a nonlinear one. Okay. So in this nonlinear optimization, what generally we do, we start from a flat guess, a random guess of the solution. Then we go on formulating this Jacobian. So this Jacobian is nothing but the information of the gradient, del f, the change in function with respect to y, change in function with respect to x, y, and z, because the number of variables you have. Clear? So we have all this mathematical background which we have studied generally for the solution of any traditional method or any optimization problem. Now, all those optimization problem I have discussed is the deterministic method. So remember, if it is a deterministic solution, deterministic method, whether it is an interior point method, whether it is a gradient based method, whether it is a depth first search, whether it is a best first search, whatever may be the searching method. Remember, this is a single agent search. Single agent means the solution you are assuming is only one probable guess of the solution. Then from that probable guess of the solution, okay, you are searching for the minima or maxima by changing the solution in a particular manner. Particular manner means you are deciding the step size del x. So if x0 is an initial solution, you are incrementing it by del x. So I can tell this deterministic method is basically single agent search. The search progresses in a particular direction. The search is guided by a rule or law, that is the information of the gradient. But if now I am discussing, which we will discuss, the nature inspired computing, this is a stochastic search method. In this stochastic search, not a single agent is involved. Multiple agents are involved in the search process. So when I'm talking to you, or when I'm telling to you that multiple agents are involved in the search process, mathematically, instead of assuming a single guess of the solution, you assume n number of probable solution initially. Okay, Newton-Raphson method, a single solution. This method, stochastic method, n number of probable solution. So these n number of probable solution, that means you are trying to find out every solution is a probable solution. So they are multiple agent, multiple solution. Each one is an agent in the solution space. In genetic algorithm, which is the stochastic method, we call this a population. And each individual solution in the population is chromosome. Similarly, in particle swarm optimization, which I will discuss now, okay, the total n number of solutions randomly generated is swarm. So your swarm size is n, and each probable solution is a particle. Even if whatever Professor Bansal has discussed in the morning, differential evolution, okay, so each probable solution is a vector, and all probable solution you are generating at the starting of the search process is a group of solution vectors. Similarly, you can tell each probable solution is an ant in an ant colony optimization. Each probable solution is a wolf in gray wolf optimization. Each probable solution is whatever bee in honeybee optimization. So forget about that. In any of the stochastic optimization technique, whether it is a evolutionary algorithm technique, swarm intelligence based technique, or any technique, so basic difference in the skeleton is, rather than choosing an initial solution for the starting purpose, you are trying to find out generating n probable solution randomly, not with a deterministic manner. Okay, randomly in the whole search space. Then further iteration, we will see how it is happening. Okay, now coming to this method, I'm just skipping all these things. I'm coming to the method which I want to discuss. So in the general optimization algorithm, you can find out each possible solution either by the deterministic method or by the stochastic method. So the algorithm is a deterministic algorithm or the algorithm is a stochastic algorithm. Now look into question is, many times people ask why this algorithm, because I have already told you why this algorithm. You can see in this particular function If you're trying to find out the solution by traditional method, so your solution may stop at global maxima or your solution may stop at global minima, a local minima. So that's why I don't want this. For a multimodal function, we have to go for this stochastic based method. And sometimes we want to find out all maxima because this function is nothing but this is mod of sin x. If we take mod of sin x, all values are 1. So all the maxima are 1, but multiple maxima exist at different values. So this is a method which generally we call Naiching method. We'll discuss it later on. Okay. So this is the traditional method of the solution. You start from an initial guess of the solution, move on with the information of the gradient. As you move on information of the gradient, you can then find out the minima here. So you are the winner now. This is a single agent sort. Now in the multiple agent, when the function it looks like this function is a Ackley function. You can see there are many minima or many maxima in this function. This is a crossed paper. The best way to visualize a multimodal function, you just have a newspaper in your hand, cross it, or any paper on your hand, cross it, put it on the table. You can see the shape and you can find many maxima or many minima. And same thing you can visualize also by looking into an egg crate. So we are putting egg in the crate. Now you hold it in your hand. Now fold it downward. If you fold it downward and look from the top, there are multiple maxima. And if you fold it upward and look from down, there are multiple minima. So that function I can tell this is known as egg crate function. So in all those functions, whether it is Ackley function, egg crate function, or many functions I'll show you later on, in all those functions, whenever there are multiple maxima or multiple minima, then the gradient based method may trap, not always, may trap in a local minima. So that's why it is very difficult to find out the global optima in this case, number 1. Number 2, sometimes the function is discontinuous. For example, if I have a function of this nature, its value exists from this point to this point. Now, from this to this, the function value doesn't exist, but here again, this is the function. So, although the search space is between xl, lower limit to x upper limit, but this is a zone for which the function value doesn't exist. Any of my friend is from electrical background, when they are solving the economic load dispatch, you know for each generator, there is a range of the power production P min and P max. During that range, you plot the function, that is your cost function, but there is a range on which the generator is not allowed to operate because of the turbine, shaft, vibration and other things. That is known as prohibited operating zone. So what is exactly the prohibited operating zone? So simultaneously I am relating it to some problem. Okay. So in that case what will happen? Although your search space is between x lower limit to x upper limit, but during that range for certain values of the x, the function doesn't exist. The function is discontinuous. If the function is discontinuous, then the traditional method in finding out the derivative, the gradient, is gone. So you are not able to find out the gradient in this. So that's why the gradient based method may not be suitable for such type of problem if it is a discontinuous one. So ultimately the solution is, which already one class is over, the solution is multi-agent based optimization. So these multi-agent are nothing but, or each agent is a probable solution in the search space. This is your function. You can see this is x1 variable 1, this is x2 variable 2, and this is the function f of x1 and x2, which is plotted here, and the function looks like this. So if you want to optimize this function in a non-traditional method, in a stochastic learning method, stochastic optimization method, whether it is genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, ant colony optimization, honeybee optimization, differential evolution, grey wolf optimization, whatever may be the method, bacteria foraging optimization, forget. But the starting of all these methods are same. It is based on assuming n number of probable solution or generating n number of probable solution randomly in the search space. So you know x lower limit, let us 0 to 10 and x2 lower limit 0 to 10. So you can tell a random number between 0 to 10, let it comes 2.5, 2.5. Okay. So this initial solution is 2.5, 2.5. Pertaining to this, you will get a function value here. Similarly, maybe this is another for which the x value is 2.1 and x2 value is around 9.8 or something. You will get a function value here. So all these probable solution, whatever may be the number, in this case you can see 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 to 11, 10, 11, 20, all are randomly generated. So once you randomly generated, I am just giving a comparison. The comparison is in Newton-Raphson you are evaluating f of x0. So in this method also you evaluate.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
The slide is not rotating, not moving.
I am in the slide where it is way out, multi-agent optimization in continuous phase. Is it visible?
No, sir.
Sorry, that's why I have told you. Just
Visible, sir.
Sir, it's visible.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
okay, let me share again. Just a minute, I have closed it. That is the problem. Give me one. Because sometimes in, this gives problem. That's why. Okay, so I was in this slide. Sorry. This slide is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now.
Now is it moving?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I was telling to all of you. So whenever I'll go to the slide, I will tell you I'm moving the slide. Okay. Each one is a probable solution. So you generate each probable solution. So like we are doing in Newton-Raphson method, if I have a function f of x like this, once I am taking a x0, then I am evaluating the f of x0. So here every particle which is a probable solution, this particle in PSO, ant in ant colony optimization, bacteria in bacteria foraging optimization, bee in honeybee optimization, vector in differential evolution, whatever you call, you evaluate it. Once you evaluate it, now here comes the change. You just mark the change. What is the change? What you are doing in Newton-Raphson method? From x0, you are generating a new solution by adding another del x to this x0, which is added in a deterministic manner because the step size is deterministic. But now, if these are the probable solution, how a new solution will be generated is dependent on your algorithm. Now you have to follow the nature. How the ants, they progress from one point to the other point in the search of food. How the bird, they travel from Siberia to India, okay, either in search of food or to change their place from one point to the other point. So looking into that, you have to modify your algorithm. So basically, if you tell, I can tell all the algorithm are same in nature, but the only difference comes in the algorithm, how to generate a new solution from a old solution. In genetic algorithm, which is one of the nature-inspired computing, which is developed in 1975 by John H. Holland. Initially, it is basically biological phenomena. So you take a pair of solution, make the crossover to generate a pair of offspring. So once a offspring will be generated, those parent solution has gone. Okay. So a pair of offspring is generated by the crossover of two older generation. That means two older chromosome. So that's why that is one way of generating. But that is not the way in the case of the evolution, in the case of the swarm intelligence algorithm. So how I have to do it? So ultimately I will show you. Now ultimately what will happen? Those particles, they move in the surface and finally all will converge at the global. So that is nearer to the global optimum. This is the basic method of the optimization problem. So now these optimizations are based on why they swarm. You might have seen the fish pooling. So there are some algorithm based on the spooling of the fish. So how they spool? So basically you can think of this is a cooperative movement, and the work of the optimization problem is solved collectively. So this is basically a collective intelligence. So n number of agents, they work together with the collective intelligence to solve the problem. So that's why this is the most beautiful thing, and we call it swarm. Swarm is a plural or collective noun. So this algorithm also known as swarm intelligence algorithm. So either it is pulling of the fish, or it is the movement of the bird, or it is honeybee, whatever. So these are the swarm, and you want to solve a swarm intelligence technique. Okay. So I'm not going into the detail of this. Let us go directly to the mathematics. So I'll now describe one of the algorithm which is known as particle swarm optimization, developed in 1995. 1975 genetic algorithm developed by John H. Holland. 95 PSO, particle swarm optimization. I like this particular algorithm, and I will tell you also the beauty of this particular algorithm, because in the morning also might be you have gone through some other algorithm, differential evolution or something like that. Okay. So let us come to this particular algorithm. If these are the two inventor of this algorithm, then why this PSO? This PSO is basically, it is a robust stochastic optimization technique, which is based on the movement of the swarm with some intelligence. Okay, and it also applies the concept of social interaction in problem solving. I will tell this what is the social interaction done. So these are the two scientists who developed this PSO. One is an electrical engineer in Kansas State University, Russell Everett, and another is the psychologist. Why I show always this picture? Because you can see this algorithm is developed mainly by a psychologist. John H. Holland, who developed genetic algorithm, is a biologist. So this area is purely interdisciplinary area. Okay. So anybody want to develop this algorithm, this is a interdisciplinary, you can apply it to any field of engineering also. Now come to the solution. I am coming simply. Now this is one diagram. If you understand this diagram, you will understand PSO. Now before that, I am giving you a glimpse of the problem. Now any optimization problem you want to solve, okay, let that the function is f of x. Now here I am writing it the capital X. This capital X is a vector. Now if this capital X, this is nothing a vector, that means there are some variables. Let the variables of the function is x1, x2 up to this variable x capital D. So D is the dimension of the problem. So there are D number of variable, okay, in this function. So that means if it is a single variable, you will get fx. If it is a double variable, f of x and y. If it is three variable, f of x, y, z. But that's why easily we call f of x1, f of x1, x2, x1, x2, x3, x1 and 2, xd. So D is the number of variable in the problem. That means your search space is a D-dimensional search space. It's very difficult to imagine after it becoming more than 3 dimensions. That is number one. So I am introducing here three variable. One variable is I. I is the particle. How many solution you are assuming? Because each probable solution in PSO is known as particle. So I am assuming I equal to 1 to capital N. So there are N number of particles in the search space. Like I show you, there are 11 particles taking part in search space. So here N is the number of particle, or N is the number of probable solution you are generating in a D-dimensional search space. Again, to make it clarify, suppose there are N number of particles. That means N number of probable solution and let n is 20. So there are 20 chromosome in GA or there are 20 particle in PSO. Each particle is of dimension D. That means there are D number of variable. So if it is a 3 variable, now each particle is having 3 variable x1, x2, x3. Some particle may have the variable x1, x2, x3 where x2 doesn't exist. It may happen. So you don't bother about that. So I am generating J. J is nothing but it is the number of variable which is equal to 1 to D. Now, as already I have mentioned you, this search is a stochastic search. This search is an iterative search. The search progress in iterative manner. So you have to decide how many number of iteration you will go on searching. Let us k equal to 1 to total number of iteration ITER F final iteration 1000 500 2000 जो भी है. So I am here introducing 3 variable to all of you. So at the end, when I will discuss this PSO, I hope everybody will write a MATLAB code on this PSO. This is not at all difficult. So that's why I am introducing you 3 variable. I, J, K. I is a n dimensional search space. I is the n number of probable solution. J is the number of variable in the search space. X1, X2 up to XD. K is the number of iteration pre-decided by you. How many iteration you will go on searching, or your search will continue for how many steps, that is iteration final, 1 to iteration final. So let us, for simplicity, I am assuming this is 20, D is 5, iteration is 1000 or whatever. Now the graph which I have shown you, this is the position of a particle. S is the position of a particle. How many particles do you have? N number of particles. So I can write S is the position of the particle I at iteration K for dimension D. Because I hope you can see my hand, whatever I am showing. Let I am searching this is a 3-dimensional search space. This whole room is a 3-dimensional search space. So it has 1 dimension x1 length, x2 breadth, x3 is a height. So let us, I am assuming a initial solution here. So this particular solution is a value of x1, is a value of x2, is a value of x3, that is height. Now you evaluate it. Once you are evaluating it, then this particle is to move in the search space or to another point. That means you generate a new solution at another point. Let the solution comes here, my right hand. So if the solution comes here to my right hand, now this is a new x1, new x2, new x3. That means new length, new breadth and new height from the old length, old breadth and old height. That means the particle will move from this initial position to this final position. So during this movement, it is changing its position in x direction, y direction, z direction. So the amount of change del x, del y, del z will vary. So if you can find the velocity, because the changing is the velocity. So it has a velocity in x direction, it has a velocity in y direction, it has a velocity in z direction. My point is very clear. That means I am taking a particle I whose position now I have shown here only for dimension D. D may be 1, D may be 2, D may be 3. So it has come to this position with a velocity in that particular dimension with a velocity of Vk. So this is also velocity of ith particle in kth iteration in D dimension. Wherever you have doubt, you will ask me, because I want to make it clear, because this is, there will be 3 loop in this algorithm. One loop is for number of iteration, one loop is for number of particle, one loop every particle has to update its position and velocity for each dimension, because you are getting a new solution in your total dimensional space. For example, if this moves here to here, there is a change in x, y and z. But if it moves from here to here, there is a change in no change in particular suppose x or y, but there is a change in z. So that's why you have to look into very carefully. So now come to your this. S is the position of the particle I at kth iteration. but it has come to this position with a velocity Vik. Now the question is, I am asking, if I will not allow the velocity to change further iteration, that means in k plus 1 iteration, if I will allow the particle has the same velocity, now what will happen? The particle will change its position sk to this position will be sk plus 1, and again the velocity will be also in the same direction. That means the particle is moving in a unidirection. It is not changing its velocity, neither or it is changing its it is not changing its velocity. So the position will change only in the same direction. So ultimately it will hit this wall. This may not reach at the global optimum. So this is, now comes the PSO. Now the question is, the particle is thinking, will I move with the same velocity with which I am now occupying the position sk? That means, will I maintain the velocity Vk, or I will change my velocity? So here I used to give everybody a classical example in whatever we all the teachers are facing. Let us, I am evaluating a candidate, okay, in my class, and let the class is, let us the either it is a class or semester, let us the semester is simplicity 1 to 8. So once you decide there is a total number of semesters are 8, so your number of iteration for the search process are 8. And let in the class there are 20 students, so the particle size is 20. And let the teacher teach 5 subjects, so those 5 subjects is the dimension. So semester 1, iteration 1, particle 1 to 20, 20 students are there. They read for whole semester. There is a exam, 5 subject. The exam was over, so everybody is evaluating. So maybe some students are reading 3 hours, some students 4 hours, some students 6 hours, whatever. So ultimately now let us, everybody is at semester 3 or semester 5. So if everybody is at semester 5, everybody is evaluating. So once you evaluate, now what is the aim? The aim is at the end of the iteration, that is at 8th iteration. Okay, everybody wants to be the winner. Everybody wants to be the topper. So when you want to be the topper, what you will do? So presently your K is at 5th semester, and I am evaluating for a particle I whose position is 5th semester is, let us, 15. Total number of students in the class are 20. So now he asks himself, I am now, my position is 15 out of the class of 20 in 5th semester, iteration is 5. It is only because I am moving with a velocity Vk, that is I am reading 3 hours a day. So if I want to be the topper at the end of the 8th semester, what should I do? So please try to understand here. Here the particle wants to look back. Presently I am at 5th semester, my position is 15. But, oh my God, at 3rd semester, K equal to 3, my position was 5. So if my position was 5 at that time, till now, because I have already the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Iteration 1, my evaluation, I am talking of particle I. Particle I evaluation in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iteration. So out of this 5 iteration, at 5th iteration, his position is 15 in whole 20 class. But its position was 5th in 3rd semester. So that's why that was the best position. That was my personal best. So look into here, there is a velocity which is known as Vp best. So when I am writing Vp best, this is the velocity of ith particle. I am not using kth iteration. It is among all the k iteration, this was the best. So this is the particle best. This is for particle I. I may be 1. If you will take I2, its own best will be different. If you will take I3, its own best will be different. So this has to be evaluated for each individual particle in each individual dimension. I hope now you are clear. So this is the particle best. So now the particle is having a dilemma. Okay, will I move with my present velocity, that is Vk, or will I move with my personal best experience, my personal best velocity, which has already stored as a record, that is VP best. Now again, at 5th semester out of 20, unfortunately or fortunately, this particle ith position is 15. There may be somebody who is the topper, who is best at the end of 5th semester. So you ask whoever is the best, what is its velocity? So its velocity is Vg best. So I am showing that this velocity is Vg best. Okay, so this is the global best, this is the topper. So this Vg best, this is at iteration k. This is not I. So I am not writing Vig best. No, this is I equal to 1 to n. Among all the particle in kth iteration, one is the topper, one is the winner, that is Vg best. Its velocity is Vg best. So basically, I hope you can now understand the whole algorithm. The algorithm is, I know the present position of a particle I have to find out at what velocity it must move. Now there is a dilemma. Will it move with Vk, which is its present velocity? Will it move with Vp best, which was its best velocity during all the iteration till now? Or it will move with Vg best, which is the present winner. So now you can take the total, the movement of the particle will be neither Vk nor towards Vp best nor towards Vg best, but a new velocity is to be found out, that is known as Vk plus 1, this velocity. How it is found out? So now you can see this one is some vector manipulation of these three vectors, Vk, Vp best, Vg best. What is this manipulation? Looked into. I am showing you this particle. Okay, so I'll come back to this slide later on, but now you can see each particle tries to modify its position using the following information. What is its current position? That is nothing but S, the position of I at kth instant for a dimension d. What is the current velocity? Correct? It is the velocity of I in a dimension d and at iteration k, and the distance between the current position and p best. You can see what is the distance between the current position and p best. Now you can see here this diagram. So this is the particle. Okay, this is your particle velocity. Let us be k. This is the particle best velocity. This is Vp best, and this is Vg. So what I am doing, I am now taking the difference between my position when I am moving with Vk and my position when I was moving with Vp. So what is the difference between that? So the difference between that is this vector joining this T. Okay, and similarly this difference is this vector. So those two blue color vectors are the difference. Now those difference is multiplied by a weightage. So that's why I am showing you this diagram. You can see the velocity of particle I in dimension d at k plus 1th instant will be the velocity of particle I at kth instant multiplied by a weight, that is omega. Clear? That means I am reading in 3 hours. Oh, okay, that 3 hour is my velocity, 3 kilometers per hour, whatever you can, 3 hour a day or 3 kilometers per hour, whatever you can think of, it is given a weightage W. So if I'll read in that way, then ultimately my position was 15, and perhaps it will remain as 15, or it will worsen to 17 or 18. Then what exactly I am trying to do? Okay, my present position is SIK, my present position is 15. My best position was third, I was sometimes third. So that is the difference, because present position is because of reading 3 hours a day. My personal best was third because of reading 7 hours a day. So that difference is 4 hours. So this difference is given a weightage C1 into rand1. C1 is a constant multiplied with a random number. So I want to move, I want to realize, I want to make up that distance between my own best performance and present performance, between my own best position and present position. So that I want to minimize with a weightage C1 into rand1. Similarly, G best is the topper's position at present, SIK is my position. This difference is given another weightage C2 into RAN2. So I hope you can now understand the whole PSO, which is governed by a single vector diagram, a single mathematical equation. So once you find out this new velocity, then you can find out the new position of the particle. So particle I in dimension D, which is hidden in both these place at iteration k plus 1, will be its position SI at iteration k plus the new velocity you are finding out Vi for k plus 1th instant multiplied by time. The time is one iteration. So Sik plus Vik plus 1. So the whole PSO is governed by these two equations. Vik plus 1 equal to omega Vik plus a random number C1 rand1. Let this random number is phi 1 into P base I minus Sik. And another random number C2 rand2, which is phi 2 multiplied by G base minus Sik. That I have shown you vectorially. You can see vectorially. So now depending on how much weightage you will give, suppose you are giving a weightage to this difference by 50% and this difference by 70%. So your new position will be like this. Or you tell no, I will give more weightage to this difference and less weightage to this difference. Then depending upon your weightage, your new position will be different. Okay, so ultimately the particle's new position from one Sik to Sik plus 1 is governed by these coefficient, three coefficient, omega, phi 1 and phi 2. That is the most important thing, omega, phi 1 and phi 2. Okay, so this phi 1 or ultimately C1, phi 2 ultimately C2. So they govern the movement of the particle in the surface. So I hope once you do for a dimension D, you remain particle I. Now please try to understand. Iteration k is fixed, particle I is fixed. You update it for all dimensions of particle I. Then you go to the next particle. Cover all the dimension. Go to next particle. Cover all the dimension. Once you complete all the n particle, then you will go to iteration 2. Then do that. So iteration is the completely outer loop. Number of particle is the middle loop. In the dimension updating is the last inner loop. So these three loop will go on. Okay. And at every point, your mathematical equation is very simple. So now I am giving you this. So basically these three terms you have understood. Vik, position of the particle I at the present instant. Its present velocity given a weightage function. C1, C2 also another weightage function which is given with respect to comparison of P based, and C2 is given with respect to the comparison of the G based. Right? So now I am showing it to you vectorially also. So let this is the particle x1 at time t or iteration k, whatever. Okay, its original velocity is the black dot. Fine. And its personal based velocity is the blue dot, and towards the global this is the pink dot. So now you take the differentiation and multiply with some weightage, you can find this is the new velocity. So in the next iteration, this particle moves from here to here, x2 moves from here to here. So suppose you have a particle x3 here at time t. So similarly, if you know what is the actual direction of x3, what is its p direction, and this is your g direction, then you can find with the combining what is the new direction of x3. So likely you update all particle in the surface. So here I have shown you one just animation. This is available in the web 3. So I have taken, you can see. But I will give you now a problem solving. How to make a problem solving. So let us, I am taking a simple problem. The function f having two variable x1 and x2. Clear? And let x1 is having a range of, this is x1 minimum range 5 and maximum range 10. Similarly, x2 minimum range is -5 and x2 maximum range is +5. So you know x1 lower limit 5, upper limit 10, x2 lower limit -5, upper limit 5. And you know your function f x1, x2. You want to solve it by PS. How you will start? So now I'll tell you very easily. First you generate particle 1. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
In Dr. Ajit Lavre.
Yeah, please.
Hello. Sir, in PSO, we are applying omega 1, omega 2, like means inertia weight.
Yes.
So, sir, in most of research articles, they have mentioned constant weight assignment method.
I'll go to that. Just after this, I'll go to that. Different methods.
Yes.
I'll go how you will change this algorithm. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Just here, I want to give the emphasis that you can write your own algorithm, because sometimes what happens, people download all these algorithms complicated. If you can understand, you can easily write within 10 lines the whole algorithm, and you can change the algorithm. That's why. Okay. So now what I'm doing, you generate particle 1. If you want to generate particle 1, I will ask you, you generate a random number between 5 to 10. The random number is 6. And generate a random number minus 5 to plus 5, let minus 4. So the first particle is take a position here 6 minus this. So this position is 6, this position is minus 4. Clear? Similarly, you generate the second particle. Okay, this is let us 7 and this is minus 3. You generate the third particle, let this is 8 and this is let us 0. Okay, so likewise you generate all the particle. So every particle is randomly generated. Not only this, every particle will also be given a random velocity. So remember, once I am giving a random velocity, the velocity will also given in x direction, x1 and x2. So simultaneously, a velocity vector along x and a velocity vector among y is to be generated, and this velocity is also a random number in x1 direction between 5 to 10, let it is 7, and a random number between minus 5 to 5, let it is 4 or 3, whatever. So every particle is given a random position and random velocity. I hope the first step is clear. Once it is done, what is the next step? You know your function f of x1, x2. So once you know the function f of x2, you evaluate the particle 1, so f of p1. Again you evaluate f of p2. Now you evaluate f of pn, because n is the number of particle in the subspace and the dimension d is 2. Iteration k equal to 1. So once you evaluate, now you can find out if it is a maxima, which particle evaluates maximum value. That is the global best. If it is a minimization function, you evaluate which particle is evaluating minimum. So once you get that, that is your G best. Now in the first iteration, the surprise thing is, in the first iteration, you can see this mathematical function. You have every particle Vik, but there is no P best because you are starting. There is no P best. So the first movement of the particle is independent of this, because you are just starting. But out of the 20 particle, one is the G best. So the movement will be along G best in the first iteration. But once you are completing iteration 1 and iteration 2, when you are going to iteration 3, then you have already two different position of the particle, then you can find out P best. Okay, so I hope you are clear about this particular algorithm. So these are the movement of the particle. You can see the particle moves. Now here another interesting thing. Some particles are trapped at local minima. You can see this is a local minima. Some particles are nearer to the global minima or global maxima, whatever you thought. Because this is the maximization, so I can take this is the global maxima. So remember, the beauty of this algorithm is, because of in each updation, you are dependent on G best minus SIK. Let this is your best particle, which is closer to the G best. So this G best minus SIK, this vector is responsible to pull up the particle which is trapped at local minima towards this. So that's why this is known as the social interaction, because the movement of the particle is governed by self-confidence, where I am looking my past history, that is known as self-cognition. So C1 coefficient, where I am comparing my present position with my own best position, VP best or S best, that is known as self-cognition factor, or the C1 is known as cognitive learning factor. C2, where I am comparing my position with the global based position, G based minus SIK. I am interacting socially with the other particle. I am not only confined to the movement based on my own performance and my own best performance. I am also looking into, I am interacting with all other particle who is socially good at this. So that is known as social learning coefficient. So that's why this is psychology. The particle in each iteration, its movement is governed by three things. Okay, a inertia factor omega, which is multiplied with VIK. A self-learning factor, cognitive learning factor, C1, where I want to try to improve my own performance based on my own learning experience. C2 is the social learning coefficient based on which I am interacting with the social, that is the G based. Okay, so ultimately at the end you can see everybody is the winner. Every particle will just end at the global maxima or global minima. So that's why I have given you an example. I will share this slide, but just one step I am telling you. Randomly I am generating a particle, 4 particle. The range of the particle in the source space is -10 to 10, and the function I want to optimize is fx, it's x into x minus 8. Please don't misunderstand here. Nobody will go to optimize the function x equal x, fx equal to x into x minus 8 by taking any algorithm. This is only for understanding, because this is a simple convex problem. I will never go to this algorithm. But to understand in one dimensional problem, just I am given to this example. So now you generate a random number between -10 to 10, that is the position of the particle, that is 7, and again generate a random number between -10 to 10 for the velocity, that is 3. So every particle is given an initial position and an initial velocity. Suppose it could have 2 dimensions, then here you have to give another dimension, okay, and similarly the velocity also here. Okay, so now you evaluate. If I put here 7 into 7 minus 8 is -7, then -2 minus 8 is 20, 9 minus 8 is 9, -6 minus 8 is 84. Now these are the 4 value evaluated. If I evaluate this, if it is a minimization problem, who is the best particle? The particle 1 is the best particle. That is known as VG best. Okay, so now what is the position? Best position? The best position is 7. Okay, so that's why when I'm updating the velocity, look into, when I'm updating particle 1, its own velocity is 3. It is multiplied with omega. Omega I am assuming 0.5. So 0.5 into 3. Particle 2, 5 into 0.5. You can see 5 into 0.5 because omega is 0.5. Plus C1 is 2. C2 is a random number between 0 to 1 is 0.6. I have already told you in first iteration there is no question of P based minus present position. P based minus present position. Nothing. But G based minus SIK will come. Because you can see for particle 2 present position is -2. Topper position is 7. So now G based minus SIK will be 9. But for particle 1, who is the topper itself, at the first iteration, it doesn't carry any meaning. So you can see in the first iteration, this is 0, this is 0. So only the velocity 3 is modified by inertia factor 0.5, that is 1.5. So its position will be 7 plus 1.5 is 8.5. Particle 2, now you can see omega into its velocity plus C1 is 2, a random number is 0.3. Similarly, C2, 2, random number 0.4. So all this. So this is the way you can go on generating. I am not going into the detail. So you can go this table, because ultimately your MATLAB program will do all these calculation and you can do it very finely. Fine. So this is a one-dimensional problem. You can see after mostly 5 or 6 iteration, all the particles are converging to the optimal value, which is 4. So the value is 4 into 4 minus 8. Okay, so that will be the optimal value. So similarly, this I have shown you also in the Rastrigian function. This is a multimodal function. Okay, this Rastrigian function, this is the function space. So here the phi 1, phi 2 parameter is taken as 2, omega is taken as 0.5. Okay, so now you can see the position of the particle. You can see all the particle. This is the particle 5 randomly generated, particle 2, particle 3, particle 4 and particle 1. So all these particles are randomly generated. These are initial particle, you can see 0.85, 2.06, particle 1. Okay, so you can generate all the particle, you can evaluate fx, then you can evaluate the global best, and similarly initial velocity and the updated particle. So you can see these particles are moving. This is the iteration 2, iteration 3, iteration 4, iteration 5, okay, iteration 6. So likely you can see all are converging to a smaller area. So you can find out. So this is the function accurate I am talking about. This is the accurate function. So this is now the question which has been asked to me. Because ultimately in this, you can see if anybody is from control system background, you can see I have two equation, and this equation is nothing but difference equation. Vik plus 1 equal to omega Vik, phi 1 into something plus phi 2 into something. Sik plus 1 equal to Sik plus Vik plus 1. So there are two states. One state is the velocity, another state is displacement or position. So this whole problem is state space problem, x dot equal to Ax. So when, or it is a, we know that the dynamics dx by dt, if I am writing dx by dt in the discrete domain, it is nothing but xk plus 1 minus xk divided by the sampling time. So here the sampling time or movement time is 1. So this difference equation is in discrete domain is same as a differential equation in the continuous domain. So this whole thing is basically a control type of thing. Your particle is moving from one point to the other, then it is going to the next place. So for example, I can just here plotting, let us, you can see, let the particle is initially here. After first iteration it is going here, second iteration it may go here, third iteration it may go here, fourth iteration it may come here, and sixth iteration it may come here. So this is your, let us, near the global. This is global optima. So these are the movement of particle after each iteration. So after few iteration it is converging. Maybe this happens different to another particle. But remember, while moving from this position to this position, this movement is governed by three factors: omega, C1, C2. Okay. So every stochastic optimization is governed by two important things, because it is stochastic optimization. Your particle movement in the search space. So how will you control the particle movement in the search space? Because otherwise what can happen, the particle also may move like this, from this to this position, from this to this position, from here to this position, here to this position. So likely this may move, you don't know how it will move. Then it may come here, I don't know, it may take more iteration. So you see, these movement completely dependent on the tuning of the parameter omega C1 and C2, or omega phi 1 and phi 2, number one. Number two is, every evolutionary algorithm, every nature inspired computing algorithm is dependent on two important things, that is exploration and exploitation. Exploration is basically the ability, this exploration is the ability of the particle in the search space, how quickly it will cover the search space. Okay, so for a better exploration, I need better step length. Again, this is a global search. Exploitation is a fine search, tuning. You know the tuning. While tuning the old radio, we might have seen we are moving that red bar very widely or with a speed initially, then you do the fine tuning. So exploration is basically the global search ability. Exploitation is basically the local search ability. So exploration can be achieved by a large step length. Exploitation can be achieved by a small step length. So that's why I am just giving you some hint. That is dependent on the value of omega. Somebody asked me just, if we will take omega greater than 1, then what will happen? Your velocity will increase with time. If the velocity will increase with time, then what may happen? The swarm may diverge, because I've already told this is a control problem. This is the movement of the particle from one point to the other point and finally reach at the global optima. So in control theory, this is a convergence. Every particle will converge towards the global optima, and they should not diverge. Diverge means the system becomes unstable. So the stability and convergence to the global optima is the two important consideration of the PSO, because of the mathematical dynamic equation which have been described, and all this movement, all this dynamic is governed by three things: omega, C1 and C2. So here I am just giving you, if omega will be greater than 1, then the swarm may diverge. So nobody till now ever take omega greater than 1. So always the omega is kept between 0 to 1. So initial paper by Eber and C in 1995, they take omega is 0.9. Okay, but if omega is less than 1, the particle deaccelerate. So in this case, the convergence is dependent on C1 and C2. So we have to make a balance of C1 and C2. We have to make a balance between global search, that is exploration, and local search, that is exploitation. A large value of omega is exploration. A small value of omega is basically exploitation. So when I will go for large value, when I will go for small value, why keep omega constant? Why not changing omega? That is the question perhaps asked. Now I will tell you. So these are different methodology people have adopted. So I am not going into this methodology. Now this is another method which you can find by a paper by Maurice Clark. They called this, this is for the stability of the swarm, this phi 1 and phi 2 must be equal to less than 4. This phi must be less than 4, slow convergence, and greater than 4 for faster convergence. So ultimately the initial paper, phi 1 is taken as 2.1 and phi 2 is taken as 2.1. That means C1 is 2.1, C2 is 2.1, and the random vector, rand number is 0 to 1. So maximum value of C1 into rand 1, that is phi 1 will be 2.1, and the maximum value of C2 into C2 into rand 2, rand, that is phi 2 is 2.1. So 2.1, 2.1 is 4.2. The value is greater than 4. This is a basically faster convergence, and this version of the PSO which is proposed by Clark, Maurice Clark, is known as constriction factor based PSO. Okay. So now come to the question. Now suppose, for example, the example I have given, suppose the particle is just starting its search. So when it's just starting its search, definitely we will prefer a quicker exploration of the search space. You don't want the particle to crawl, just move in a smaller space or small step. So initially I prefer to give the omega a high value. So what people do here, instead of omega assuming constant at the starting of the iteration, this is iteration number 1, omega is maximum. Okay, so this is your omega max. So this is the starting of the search. As the search progresses, as you are coming closer towards destination, as your iteration number increases, then you don't want your step size should be large. The step size should be low, because you are nearly reaching to your global optima, or you are nearly reaching towards your optima. I want to travel from place A to B. The road is free. I can travel at 60 km per hour. But once I am reaching to my destination, even if the road is free, I may not travel at 60 km per hour. I have to put some brake. So omega has to be decreased as iteration increases. So that is basically this algorithm where omega is equal to the maximum value of omega, omega max, minus omega max minus omega mean into iteration by maximum number of iteration. Now when iteration is equal to 1, this is 1 by 1000, which is very less. So omega equal to omega max. Now as you go on, the increases. So iteration becomes 1000, then this becomes 0, omega is equal, this becomes 1, iteration by maximum iteration is 1. So this becomes omega max minus omega mean. So this is omega mean. So the omega value is changed from omega max to omega mean. Omega mean is the maximum iteration 1000. So it changed from 0.9 to 0.4 in a linear decrement fashion. Okay, so this 0.4 decrement is over total iteration. So that is the slope, negative slope. Clear? So that is the main idea. See, the main idea is when the search initially progresses, the acceleration coefficient omega is large. That means you are giving more emphasis to global search. As the search progresses, you are giving more emphasis to local search. So this is one method where people call this is accelerated. That means your omega you are changing with respect to iteration. Now this is not the end of the story. If you this is the end of the story, your paper published is one. So some people what they do, instead of decreasing it a linear manner, what they do, they keep omega max for certain number of iteration, they suddenly decrease it, again keep max another iteration, again decrease it, again keep constant for certain number of iteration, maybe for 50 iteration one value, another 50 iteration another value, another 50 iteration another value. So the fundamental is same, you are decreasing, but you are decreasing in a step manner. They call it okay step adaptive change of omega PSO. So ultimately, you see, your philosophy is not is same. Omega is decreasing, but how it is decreasing, whether linearly decreasing or stepwise decreasing, then accordingly a new algorithm is done. Some people they multiply it with a sine curve. They call it sine modulated accelerated coefficient. It is basically the same thing. It is between this value to this value, but in a sine modulated way or cosine modulated way or a wavelet modulated way. People modulated it by means of a wavelet. Okay, like way. So these are the different way, but my point is, please try to understand, omega should decrease from a maximum value to a minimum value with the increase in iteration as the search progresses. But how will you decrease it? It depends upon you. It depends on different algorithm. Not necessarily which one is good, which one is bad. You can find hundreds of papers how people have decreased this value of omega from one point to the other point. Just a minute. Okay. So this is one way I have told you how omega is changed so that it can yield different algorithm. Like somebody has asked me, you can have change in omega. Yes, you can change omega. You can change omega in different fashion, but the philosophy should be omega should be changed from a larger value to a smaller value as the search progresses. Fine. Now these are the comment on the inertia factor. I have already commented larger omega, greater global search ability, smaller omega is the greater local search ability. Fine. So I am not going to the flowchart. Now this is some comment on C1 and C2. Why only omega? Why not C1 and C2? Okay, if you take C1 and C2, both are 0. What is happening? I have already told you, your search is unidirectional. So you may stuck at the boundary. Okay. Now if C1 is greater than 0 and C2 is 0, that means you are not dependent on the social learning. You are only dependent on the cognition learning. So this model is known as cognition only model. If you are making C1 0, but C2 is greater than 0, this is social only model. C1 and C2 both are greater than 0, then the particles are attracted towards the average of y and y cap. That means you are taking both the social and cognitive model. C2 is greater than C1. This is more beneficial on unimodal problem. C1 is less than C2, more beneficial in multimodal problem, because these are based on certain papers which has already published how the C1 and C2 influence the search space. Okay, but what is the guarantee or what is the way to change the C1 and C2? So this is just I want to highlight how to modify this algo. One way is to modify the basic algorithm is the changing in omega, which you have seen how to change the value of omega. The other way is modifying the value of C1 and C2. Now please try to understand. This is very nicely given in a paper which is published in IEEE Transaction Evolutionary Computation in 2004 by Ratnavira and SK Halgamuge, SC Watson. So what is the idea here? C1, for which C1 is responsible? I have already told you C1 is the self-learning, C1 is the cognitive learning. C2 is the social interaction, so it is a social learning, social coefficient. Now you see the very important thing, when the search starts, now if the search starts, why should you tell if a kid just starting from class 1, you see I am not giving some impression to the kid, okay, you have to go to some coaching center. Why should? Learn yourself, try to learn yourself, try to do good, but as the search progresses, as the class increases 1 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, then ultimately you can tell to the kid to compete with the topper gradually. Not in the very class 1 you tell, okay, you try to compete. So that is the main idea of this particular paper. So in that case, what exactly I want to do, at the starting of the search, C1, which is basically the self-learning, should given large priority. So you can see at the starting, T by maximum iteration is low, 1 by 1000. So your C1 is 2.5. So C1 is decreasing from 2.5 to 0.5. This is 0.5. This is the value of C1. Okay. So initial value of C1 is 2.5, or you can take 2.1 and decrease to 0.5 as the search progresses. Similarly, C2, which is the social coefficient, it is increased from 0.5 to 2.5. That means initially you give more thrust on social learning, less thrust on social learning, more thrust on self-learning. As the iteration progresses, you decrease the self-learning and give the competition spirit, go on increasing the your social learning. So that's why it is known as self-organizing hierarchical PSO. So the idea is same, but don't tell me no, I will increase C1 from 0.5 to 2.5 and C2 is 2.5 2.5. So this is violates. That's why these are known as nature inspired computing, bio inspired computing. What is happening in nature? See, once there is a group of students studying in class 1 or class 2 or class 3, they want to compete with each other, but you have to take it in a very cohesive manner. How to encourage this competition. The encourage in competition cannot be done forcibly. Forcibly means by giving a larger coefficient to that. So that's why this is the main idea of C1 and C2. I hope this is one algorithm. Then the other algorithm also, you can see this one. This is known as emotional PSO. So now, okay, how it differs from the other one? How we are changing C1 and C2? Look into. Now suppose what exactly I am doing at iteration 1. I am evaluating all the 20 particle. Out of these 20 particle, I am telling all these 20 particle irrespective of their evaluation, C1 is high and C2 is low. Why? So what is the basic of this algorithm? You can see, you evaluate all the 20. Look into, in those 20 particle, how many are sad and how many are happy or joyful. Oh God, how to know which particles are happy, which particles are joyful? I am giving an example. Because you are evaluating all the 20 particle, particle 1 to particle 20. You are evaluating all the 20 particle. And let the minimum evaluation is 200 and the maximum evaluation is 1000. Okay. Out of P1 and P20, when you are evaluating, the F of something is coming, minimum value is 200, maximum is 1000. So now you can see whether it is a maximization or minimization. So if it is a minimization problem, or suppose if it is a maximization problem, now those are evaluating nearer to 1000, they are happy. Those are evaluating nearer to 200, those are sad. If it is a maximization. If it is a minimization problem, those are evaluating nearer to 200, they are happy because it is a minimization problem. Those are evaluating towards the 1000, they are sad. So I am defining this as two sets, two crisp sets. One set is sad, one set is joy. So to do that, what I will do, this is the minimum evaluation 200, maximum evaluation 1000. So the average evaluation, let us, is 600, 2000 plus 1000 by 2. So anybody evaluating more than 6000 is happy. for maximization. Anybody evaluating less than 600 is zero. So I can divide this into two categories. Some particles are happy, those who are evaluating more than 600, and this value will change in every iteration. Okay, because iteration wise their evaluation will change. So every iteration I have to look into by having a boundary which particles are in the happy set, which particles are in the sad state. Okay, so now what I will do, instead of every 20 all the 20 particles giving C1 high, C2 low, those who are happy, because they are happy, they are performing well, I will tell do a little bit competition. So for them, for all the particles who are happy set, I'll tell them no, C2 is high, C1 is low, and those you are evaluating very sad, I don't force them to have the social interaction. Okay, for them C1 is large and C2 is small. This is quite good logic. So they call it emotional PSO. Now another twist people can give. Now what you are doing? If somebody is evaluating 599, you are putting him sorrow. Okay, 599 is sorrow here. And somebody evaluating 601, you are putting him happy. So echo C2 large, C1 less, the other is C1 large. How does it matter whether 599 or 601? So why a crisp set? Why not have a fuzzy set? If I'll make a fuzzy set here, what I'll do, if somebody is evaluating 599, it is closer to 600. So he may not be 100% happy, but he is 80% happy or 90% happy, but 10% sad. Okay. And even if who is evaluating 601, he is not that much of happy on this other side. So that's why you make a fuzzy set. By making a fuzzy set, you can change this value. So these are the some thoughts by which you can change C1 and C2, P1 and P2, and all these C1, C2, or Phi1 and Phi2, and omega for different algorithms. Similarly, this is another also adaptive particle swarm optimization, self-coordinating mechanism with updating information. Exactly the same value. B is a statistical variable. Based on the statistical variable, the C2 is changing with a influence. The influence on the previous parameter. So you will find a lot of paper how C1 and C2 are changing, but ultimately my only request to all of you, when you are devising a new algorithm, nature-based algorithm, to change those parameters or update this parameter in different iteration, you must see that the philosophy on which this nature-inspired algorithm is dependent upon should not be hampered. Okay, because writing mathematically some equation is good, but that should happen really when you are applying it to an algorithm. Okay, because you have to look into whether this really happens in nature or not, because that's why all these algorithms we call nature inspired algorithm. So now I'll come to another type of algorithm which you call anti-predatory PSO. So what is happening in this anti-predatory PSO? Now you see, the particle is moving based upon its own best experience, personal based, and the topper, global based. Now this may happen that if during all my semester, in one of the semester, I have got F grade in all the 5 subjects, the dimension D, and let the semester is 2, because I was reading only 1 hour a day. So definitely I don't want to repeat it, because like I am looking my P best in the 3rd semester, similarly my P worst is in the 2nd semester. So that's why every particle is having a best performance till now, as well as also a worst performance till now. Okay, so as my movement is dependent on G best, my own personal best, my own present velocity, but I will add here another feature. I will never go towards my worst experience. So that's why you have a memory about your worst experience and give here a social behavior to the PSO that you will never go to that. So that's why the cognitive behavior is divided into 2, worst and best, that is P best and P worst. Similarly, the social behavior is also split into global good and global bad experience, because it may happen that because of some global, your position was such that your new position, you are performing ghost. Not necessarily the particle which is moving based on the information of BP based, BP based, G based and own velocity, its performance will improve. This may go bad. So that's why whether you are going bad because of your bad experience or because of a global based who is at present is also bad. So that's why you can divide it by 2. So that's why this is one of the anti-predatory PSO, because this idea came in the pace of the fish pooling. When the fish are moving in the sea, once they will be attacked by a shark, so it is a predatory and prey. Once it will be attacked by shark in a particular region, they will never go there. So that's why not take that classical example of all the particles who are moving in the surface in finding out the global maxima, they can use their host experience. So this host experience is given with a coefficient phi 3 with a negative value. Okay, C3 and 3, but this should be a negative one. You never want to go there. So this coefficient should be negative. Okay, so that is known as anti-predatory PSO. Again, in this PSO also, we are giving some topology. Topology means how the particle will be distributed. Now you see, if the particles are distributed very nearly to each other, this is a uniformly distributed particle. These are some distributed particle. So that's why the distribution of the particle in the surface is also influences. So that's why this is people have gone for cluster based PSO, because this is your whole surface and the particles are distributed like this. You don't know. So what you can do, you can take a one cluster like this, another cluster like this, another cluster like this. Then in the same cluster you try to make a competition. You find the G best. So G best of this cluster, G best of this cluster, G best of this cluster. So one particle will interact with the 3 G best. So basically this is K-means clustering or C-means clustering. You can add up and you can change. But ultimately the idea is the movement of the particle from one point to the other point based on the influence of other particles, its own and other particles. So in the other, whether you look into only one leader or you look into 3 consecutive best leaders, so that depends on you. So that's why the movement is also dependent on the particle. So my point is, if you want to know more about this particle swarm optimization, you can look into this particular site by Maurice Clark. Okay, this particle swarm.net. Many papers and everything is there. Then if I'll compare it with PSO, this PSO with a genetic algorithm or something, because the beauty of this algorithm is the social interaction. The beauty of this algorithm is there is no question of survival of the fittest like in genetic algorithm. 2 parents, they produce 2 offspring, the parents are dead. There is no way you can keep it. Even if the parent is good, then the offspring, because once you have made the crossover, the parents are gone. So that's why that is not the case in this particular case. So here no selection operation, no competition, and no survival of the fittest, no crossover. Only PSO is governed by the local search and global search. And this local search and global search can be achieved by tuning the proper factor, that is omega. So that's why this is a beautiful algorithm. Already you have also perhaps discussed in the morning the D. In D also you can see the same, the crossover probability F1 and F2. The same thing almost. The structure is basically same, how they are covering. Okay, so these are some multimodal function. If you look into all those multimodal function, different, because why I am showing you this function, if you are developing any new algorithm, all these algorithm has to be tested with a standard benchmark function. These are the standard benchmark function. There are unimodal, there are multimodal, there are constrained, there are unconstrained. So you have to see how many peaks are there and whether you are reaching at the global peak or not. So Rosenberg, Rastrigian, Greenway, Schaffel, Ackley, Kennedy, so many functions are there. Okay, so every function, the minimum value is given, the optimal value is given. You have to run it for the 500 iteration, and then you can find out how closer your solution reaches. So I am not going into this. This is basically you can discuss and you can find out, and you can find out the result. So similarly, there is a recent algorithm which is also known as pigeon inspired optimization, because the algorithm is same. That's why I am telling you. In this pigeon inspired optimization, what you are doing, because you know that pigeon is a clever one. it has a behavior which is homing behavior. Okay, and that's why perhaps pigeon is used during the World War, First World War, Second World War, and particularly the pigeons are also used in our cinema to carry the letters. Okay, so forget about all those things. But this is a behavior, and perhaps you can have the idea the pigeon may have a compass, because when you are moving from one point to the other point in the search space, now suppose a particle is here, a particle is moving here, and its initial velocity is here, another velocity is here. So because your compass is showing you, so there is a change in angle. So in PSO there are some versions of the PSO where they change the angle also, the velocity and angle. So if you change the velocity and angle, then you don't have to change all these every dimension. Okay, you can change one every dimension. Sorry, you can change this angle. Okay, it's the position like this. So that is the basically idea here. But when generally the parrots move, they perhaps remember some landmark. So that's why they use this landmark for their movement, and they use the magnetic field to map the route. Okay, so that's why during the whole search they may look for some landmark, and for other movement they may depend on the magnetic field. So based on that, this is the algorithm. No worry, simple algorithm. The velocity of ith pigeon or ith particle, whatever you can tell, okay, at time t will be it's the previous velocity multiplied by a exponential decaying function e to the power minus rt, which is nothing but omega into vik. Omega is less than 1. So e to the power minus rt, it is a decreasing phenomena. So you can see this is the only way, the same behavior. Okay, so this R is known as map and compass factor. And then what you are doing, xg is the global based, your present multiplied by a random number. So same thing as PSO, but it is named as a pigeon optimization algorithm with a little bit change. So I hope you can understand this algorithm. Absolutely nothing. XIT is nothing but XIK plus 1. VIT is VIK plus 1. So VIT minus 1 is VIK. Okay, XIT minus 1 is XIK. So that's why the position is updated only based on two factors, the global and the compass factor, e to the power minus RT. So which is e to the power minus RT, it is exponentially decaying. Earlier omega you are taking like this. Now it is exponentially decaying, you are taking like this. So absolutely the same thing, your acceleration or deceleration. So I hope you have understood. So this is the pigeon, this is the global pigeon, these are the other pigeon, this is initial movement period, this is the direction towards that they want to update. And similarly, landmark operator. The landmark operator, the number of pigeons are halved after every iteration. Okay, so once you make it half, then you based on that you evaluate. Let XCT be the center of some position in ith iteration, and suppose every pigeon can fly straight to the destination, then you can just two cluster, you divide it into two cluster, then update. So this is a landmark operator. So one is map and compass operator, e to the power minus RT, and another is the landmark operator. So based on that, you can have a optimization problem. So I hope you can understand this particular one, this algorithm. Then I'll just finish with a brief introduction about the multi-objective, because we have shown you this as the single objective optimization f of x. But if there are two objectives, f1x and f2x, and you want to have two objectives, for example, here I am giving a classical example. You want to have minimize the cost of a product, minimize the quality of the product, minimize the wastage of raw material, and maximize the efficient use of machine and worker. So you can see your objective one, minimize the cost of product and minimize the waste of material. If I can minimize the waste of material, then I can minimize the product. If I can maximize the efficient use of machine and worker, then I can minimize the product. So 1, 3, 4, they move in the same direction. But objective 2, maximize the quality of the product, because if you want to minimize the cost, then the quality may not be good. You have to compromise the quality. So objective 1 and objective 2, they move in the opposite direction. So this is a conflicting objective, 1 and 2. It is very difficult to achieve 1 and 2 simultaneously. I can give some example. In electrical engineering, people do the economic and emission dispatch. If you want to minimize the fuel costs, then the coal which will burn is of low quality. The cost will be low. but the emission will be high. But if you want to reduce the emission, the cost of the coal will go up, and the cost of the, so high quality, high cost. You want to purchase a good comfort, good quality car, definitely the cost will be more. You want whatever. Suppose many communication people, they want the sensor placement. If you want to place the sensor so that the coverage will be more coverage, more sensor has to be placed. So cost will be go up. So, but with less number of sensor, with less cost, with a good coverage, you may not get. Similarly, in the banking sector, you want to invest money and you want to get interest. Okay, high interest, high risk. Low interest, low risk. So, but every person who want to invest, every investor, they want high return with low risk, which is not feasible. So these are the objective which we want to carry on simultaneously. That is a multi-objective optimization, but with two contradictory objectives. So in this case, two contradictory objective, basically what exactly doing, either you can do with a weighted function. Your objective 1 is given a weightage W1 and objective 2 is given a weightage W2, which is nothing but 1 minus W1. So a multi-objective can be converted into a single objective. But what is the problem here? The problem is your result is dependent on the weight. Suppose you want to give the first objective 80%, 0.8, and second objective 0.2. But another user tell, no. For me, objective 2 is important. I will give 0.8 here and 0.2 here. Then the whole solution will be different. So instead of a single solution, there are multiple of solutions, and all those solutions are dependent on the weight. And then there is a question: what is the guarantee you will get a solution for any arbitrary weight you are selecting randomly? Because one weight is select, the other one minus that, but you don't want whether the solution can be achieved or not. So to get a clear picture of the solution, you have to run this program multiple times with so many trials of the W1 and W2. But most important thing is, suppose your F1 is the cost and F2 is the comfort. What is the unit of comfort? I don't know. What is the unit of emission? The emission is carbon NOx, COx in kg. How can you convert it in the rupees, where the cost is in rupees? The power production cost in rupee. So you can't add 5 apple plus 7 orange. So that's why you need a conversion factor also. The conversion of 1 kg of NOx or 1 kg of SOx to an equivalent rupee in India or to an equivalent dollar in USA. So this conversion factor will vary. So for the same problem, we will get different. So that is the problem. To avoid that, people use the multi-objective Pareto-based solution. Of course, this is not the time for that multi-objective, but this is the idea just I have given to you. Maybe some other speaker will discuss about that. Otherwise, I can discuss it in the next class. Anyhow, I want to close here, but I want to take up some questions regarding your understanding or you want something. Yeah. Any questions or anything?
Sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Hello.
Hello, sir. My question is, hello.
Yes. One can ask. Yes. It is Sundaram Pandya. You want to ask? Yes. Go on.
Yes, sir. I want to ask regarding the robustness of the algorithm. Sir, how will you increase the robustness of the algorithm? That is regarding with the mean or any other idea for increasing the robustness of the function?
See, because all these algorithms you have to run multiple times. Why multiple
Yes.
times? Very important thing is because every time you are starting from a random position.
Yes,
so
sir.
every time you run from a random position, then you know whether the algorithm converted 500 iteration, 1000 iteration, or 1500 iteration. So you can tell your algorithm is robust if out of the 50 trial run, the standard deviation of all the run is very near 0.
Near.
Zero.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Every
sir.
time you are getting the same value, that means your algorithm is robust. But the robustness is dependent on your parameter tuning. All
Okay,
these
sir.
algorithms are dependent on the parameter tuning. How you are tuning the parameter. Number one, it is problem dependent. What is the complexity of the problem? How many variables are there? Okay. What is the dimension? And number two is how this parameter you are tuning it, because I have shown you the movement of the particle is dependent on the parameter. So if the parameters are not tuned properly, then you may not get a solution. That's why there are other tests also. The t-test you can do
Yes,
some
yes,
statistical tests. Yes.
yes, sir. Sir, there is another question, very interesting, that
Yeah.
the robustness is regarding with the objective function. But is there any technique to increase the robustness of the decision variables?
No, decision variable, that is basically the optimization algorithm. Because,
Hmm.
because for example, where I do not know, for example, I will give you an example. I have developed a neural network classifier. Clear?
Yes, sir.
To this
Hmm.
neural network classifier, I am deciding the input to the neural network based on my own experience. That is
Yes,
known
sir.
as feature. That is known as feature. Okay.
Hmm.
But you don't know which set of the feature are the best feature, because the features are decision variable.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, sir. Okay.
So there are n number of features, and all n number of features are decision variable, but you don't know whether all these n features give you the best accuracy. So
Yes, sir.
the objective function you want to maximize is the accuracy.
Yes.
The decision variable is the number of features. For example, if I want to classify between a cow and goat, and I will
Hmm.
take the number of leg as a feature, then this feature is redundant. Whether
Yes,
it is
yes,
a
yes, sir.
cow or a goat, everyone is having 4 legs. Okay,
Yes,
but
yes,
I
yes.
don't know. But I took the number of leg as the feature, so this is a redundant feature. So that's why the number of decision variable to decide for a particular optimization problem, that itself is an optimization problem. Okay, so
Yes, yes,
again,
yes, yes,
that
yes.
can be achieved by GA or PSO or DE also, because randomly you generate. You don't know how many, which are the combination, based on
Which
you
are
can.
the combination?
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
How
So
many times the decision variables are moving up and down?
yes, because basically, see, ultimately it's a stochastic. You can go it sequentially. You take only one variable, then two, then
Okay.
three, then four, then combination 1 2 1 3 1 4. Okay, then 1 2 3 2 3 4 3 4 1. So instead of going sequential learning method by trying which variables are best yielding, you do by a random search. Are you getting my point?
Yes, 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 sir.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and
Sir,
sir, simple last question, sir.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have the plot of exploration and exploration
Yes, you can see how
plot?
the particles are moving. Yes. Yes.
The best is exactly 0.5. If we go for the 0.5 straight line, that will be a good for exploration and exploration point of view.
Not necessarily. Again, I told this depends on the problem, the stiffness of the
Okay,
problem. Problem. Yeah.
that is tuning of parameter. That is
Yeah.
tuning of parameter.
Every time. So that's why, see, I can tell two things. Now, there is a
Hmm.
theorem that is not, don't ask me D is better or PSO is better. Because D
Okay.
already you have covered in the morning, PSO I have covered, maybe somebody will cover ant colony bacteria foraging again. And at the end of the nature inspired computing, you know n number of algorithms. But if you will ask at the end which algorithm is best, which algorithm I will use, then there is a best theorem known as no-preload theorem. In the no-preload theorem, you can't tell which one is good, which
Yes,
one
yes.
is
According to NFL, there is no any algorithm is best.
yes. So ultimately, my answer to all of you is the algorithm which you will select is dependent on the type of the problem. And most important thing is how you are tuning the parameters of the algorithm. Clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It is very nice, sir. Answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
sir,
Yes, Ajit will. Yeah.
yes, sir. Suppose in the weight assignment method,
Yeah.
said W1, W2, W3s are there.
Correct.
Okay, sir. And if suppose if I assume ki complete W's
Hmm.
they are equal to 1, means say suppose W1 if I select 0.2,
Hmm.
W2 if I select 0.2, and W3 if I select 0.6. So
Correct.
is there any fixed criteria how to select these weights of
No,
W1, W2, W3?
that's why I told. In multi-objective, if you will go this way, the
Ah,
selection of the weight is dependent on the user. For example, if I want to purchase the car and I am a professor in IIT Delhi, looking into my salary, I will never dream for Mercedes Benz. Fine.
okay.
But I know that in the case of Mercedes Benz, I will get a high comfort and also high price. So I will not go. So if I want to optimize that to purchase a car for me, and to have a compromise between the cost and the comfort, then I will put definitely looking to my pocket side. Okay, 50% comfort and 50% cost. This may not be true for an industrialist. Okay, they may put 90-10. This may not be true for somebody else, which may put 10 and 90. Are you getting my point? So that's why my point is the problem is same, but the solution differs. The solution depends on the user. Okay, so that's why the major difficulty is how to choose the weights. Number one. Then to get a clear picture of the solution, every time you have to run the program for a different weight.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why there is another approach. Today there was no time to discuss that. That is known as the Pareto based dominance approach, where you don't have to assume the weight.
NSGA2.
Either it is NSGA2, now Kalyan Dev has come out with NSGA3, you have MOPS, you have SPEA, Strength Pareto Evolutionary Algorithm. So many algorithms are there.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
And sir, one more last question. My last question.
Yeah.
In one of my paper, in the implementation of NSGA2 for the process control system,
Yes.
I have chosen 5 objective functions. I have chosen 5 objective function, but
Yes.
suppose any objective function gets violated over there, and so what I did, I have considered it as a constraint, sir. Say suppose through the point of electrical engineering, IAE I have chosen integral absolute error, integral squared error, and various weight assignments to that error performance indices. Okay, sir. And if any one objective function gets violated, I have considered it as a constraint. As a constraint.
I got your point. In that case, suppose you are getting IAE, you don't want to allow the IAE should be more than 0.5. So if it once it's more than 0.5, you fix it. You put it as a constraint. But as long as it is that same thing we do also in this reactive power planning, the generator reactive power, isn't it? So we put the generator reactive power to some limit. Once the limit is violated, you put it constraint, not more than that. That is one of the way. Yes, you can go.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Anything? Anyhow, thank you all for attending this particular. I don't know how far I have cleared or how far you understand, but I am sure everybody is able to write a program at least on the MATLAB or Python to understand the basic philosophy of the PSO and how to modify this algorithm further. And I am sure any other new algorithm you will learn. So basic skeleton of all the algorithm, like we all human beings sitting here, 76 attendants and myself, the skeleton of everybody is almost same, but the same size and looks are different. So I treat all this evolutionary algorithm in the same way. It starts from the same skeleton, the random generation of the solution, then how we'll move it from one point to the other is dependent on the type of algorithm and the parameter tuning of the algorithm. Okay, so that is the main thing, that is the constraint, the size of the hand, the size of the leg, the size of the head, these are the constraints. Okay? Otherwise, if my head looks like a big balloon, then I am not a man, I will be a demon. That is the difference. Okay, so all these algorithms, when you tune this parameter, keep all these parameters, the constraints and the changing in the parameter, the tuning of the parameter into account to devise any new algorithm. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Nandini,
Thank
please.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with these concepts. And I'm sure that all the participants present here would be utilizing it in one or the other way in their lives because of its interdisciplinary nature of these algorithms. And also, I hope the participants have all their doubts cleared. And I'd like to thank all the participants for their valuable time and making their presence count. Next in line, we have session 3, which will be held tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. sharp, which would be on the topic fundamentals, advancements, and open problems in nature-inspired optimization techniques, which would be taken up by Professor Kusumdeep ma'am from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
So we'll meet on 23rd, 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yes, sir. 23rd, 10 o'clock.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.